So this is going to be a fun and interesting conversation. So Ryan and I had actually been neighbors our whole
Uh,
lives growing up, and the universe kind of just brought us here together. So we're going to have a very open conversation. We're just going to let this go wherever it wants to go, and I'll kind of just throw up a title after our conversation based on whatever we
okay.
end up talking about. So Ryan, please feel free and introduce yourself and what you're up to.
Sure. Well, I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity and holding the space for having me here on your interview. And yeah, like you were mentioning, we lived, yeah, pretty much our whole entire life as neighbors, went to the same high school. I think we're even on the tennis team. Talked a little bit here and there, never really talked. And then, years go by where we never see each other at all. And then, I just come across a post on Facebook where you're doing tarot reading and you're doing these interviews and you're asking for people within this type of community. So I was like, hey, you know what? Let's do it. I'm totally open for it. And, to help support you and each other and whoever's in this community too, to let people know that there's a lot of us out there. We're just usually hesitant and scared to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and as far as like what I do, I'm a Reiki master, and I also do channeling. So now what I'm doing is I'm trying to figure out how to combine those two together. And so those are these services I offer as far as like the more what people would say alternative healing, energy healing, or with the channeling, people like to call like the more etheric type stuff. So those are the things I'm doing right now. And what I'm working on too is because I've always been into, fitness and and I used to do personal training. So I'm figuring out ways to help people bridge the connection between the physical and the spiritual body and the energetic body. So that way there's a good coexistence between the two and we're not just focusing so much on one or the other. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I honestly, my mind is still blown. like I had no idea. And I didn't even remember we were Facebook friends until I got your message.
Yeah.
Oh wait, this is interesting.
So everything is within divine time.
Yeah, definitely. And I got this Mother of Cups in the reverse. And this is prompting me to actually ask you about your journey of kind of learning to tap into those emotions and that balancing of like the masculine and feminine energies and the side of just the spiritual world in general.
Yeah, for sure. So that has been a big part of my journey too, with doing a lot of the inner work within myself. So with Reiki, I was introduced to it by my sister, and through being a practitioner, learning more about it, and then doing the sessions yourself and on your own, it can bring up a lot of emotions that are held very deeply within you, especially in the subconscious mind. And then sometimes those turn into like physical ailments. And so as I'm learning this, I'm having to do the inner work and learning about, okay, when certain emotions come up, are they coming from past traumas, things that trigger me? Or is it because I have, this type of judgment around something? And so with that, having to learn that about yourself, and then balancing divine masculine feminine, it's about doing the inner work and having that intuitive to know, okay, like this is something I need to heal, or is this something that it's coming from someone. So those are the types of things that I had to be aware of too as well on this journey, is because when you're diving more and more into this type of energy work, you're you're having to really figure yourself out. So by doing that, you start exploring a lot of deep embedded emotions that are within you, and also, things that maybe you don't even know that you how to say, like, healed from, like all these traumas and wounds. So when you're in this type of journey, as you're learning to heal in different modalities, you understand that by progressing forward, there's a lot of healing that has to happen within yourself. And sometimes, that involves, like, what you're mentioning, the card was saying, is the balancing of divine masculine and feminine. So as we're going through our journey, right, and we're looking at different things that are happening, especially in the world, and then as you're learning more about yourself, you are starting to allow yourself to have this bigger perspective and view of the world and how everyone coexists with each other and how everything's connected. And so, as you're learning to understand that more and more, that's when you realize that there has to be this balance of divine masculine feminine. And
Yeah.
that's something I'm very fortunate that, my girlfriend, which I strongly believe, the universe brought her to me as a partner, because she helped me really understand, how to go within myself, understand my emotions, which is, part of that divine feminine. And then, the masculine, which I used to have a lot of, that sometimes just usually took over a lot. So with having her by my side, it really helped balance this part of me. And, having that balance and learning to always be in that balance, it goes back to where we always want to try and remain, which I've always, tried to always be in that state of neutrality, because then we don't get pulled into emotions from other people, and then we don't allow ourselves to, be off-centered as well.
Yeah, and with these next ones, with the lovers coming in the reverse,
Hmm.
as well as the Daughter of Pentacles in the reverse, I would also like to see how you kind of went from that internal healing and that journey on a personal level,
Hmm.
and how you kind of came to that decision that you were going to take this to something that was for other people and turning it into a side business or passion, or however you might want to define it, what that transition looked like.
Yeah, sure. So that was quite a bit of a journey, but I'll try and keep it as, straightforward as possible.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, with the inner healing that had to happen, and that really started from working in retail. So it hit a point in my life where I was in retail for a while. I was doing management, um, but there just always seemed to be something missing. So, and it was always having like I always felt like there was a purpose missing. And I always liked to help people and better people. And I thought it would be through personal training always. And so I was always trying to build that up. But for some reason, it just still didn't feel complete. At least to me, it didn't. And and then, that's when the frustration started setting in. And then, how we have these downward spirals of where we're just like, what am I doing with my life? What's going on? Things like that. And and at that time too, the person who I was seeing, like, on and off, things were going good too as well. And so then my sister was like, hey, I started doing this thing called Reiki, and she explained it to me. Never heard of it. And I never really, I wouldn't say never really believed in those types of things, but I just didn't pay any attention to it. So then after she gave me a couple of sessions, that's when I realized how powerful these things can be, and actually how real it is. And so that was when the first time I really felt the experience of just a release of a lot of emotions and frustrations come out of me, and how much lighter I felt after, and how much more clearer I could think. And also, now, without having all that heaviness and frustration built in me, I'm able to see my life, my journey in such a more clear perspective. And so after, I had that experience and I felt what it did for me, and I could see how it started, steering my life in different paths. That's when I decided, to take the class from a teacher that my sister was going to. And from there, we're in this room and in this community where I'm seeing people from so many different walks of life have all these profound experiences and how it's steered them and changed them in ways they couldn't imagine as well. And a lot of them had to do the inner work first. So as soon as I experienced that and being in that type of setting community with people who are healing themselves first and doing the inner work first before starting to, go out in the world and spread how they want to help people, that's when I said, okay, this is definitely something that I know what was missing. So and that's when I asked myself, okay, this is how I can help people, and this is how I want to help people, not just with the personal training. And and that kind of led me on this journey of exploring it more and more, because now really understood how, if we really want to help people, right, we want to better the world, we want to help everyone coexist with each other, we always have to start with ourselves first. And so by offering that service where we can help heal other people and help them do the inner work, then they're able to go ahead and do what they want to be of service to other people and the world.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that, like, I also have an experience of leaving management and retail, and that kind
Yeah.
of was part of my journey as well. And what came out is the Three of Swords in the reverse, paired with the Four of Wands. And so this, I feel, is very in line with the story that you just shared. And how I'd like to kind of spin this is looking back and reflecting on those experiences of having to let go of certain things. And of course, you can share as much of your personal story as you want to here. But I'd like to hear about the side of it of really like how to transmute and transform from being in that heavy energy, having to let go of things that are just like that we have these emotional attachments to, and
Mhm.
how you were able, like, I see this as that transformation into the butterfly, right, from the
Yeah.
caterpillar to the cocoon to that butterfly, and how those experiences needed to happen in order for the butterfly to happen. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So the whole part, with the transmuting, right? The transformation process. It's it's one of those things where we hear, right? If we're beginning to step into this type of world, we hear stories of like how if your angels or your guides or what you associate with, they give you these little nudges, and even your inner knowing, right? You're like, I shouldn't be in this environment. I know I shouldn't go, but then that fear comes in. There's nothing better for me out there. What happens if I leave the job? I'm not going to make any money. I'm not going to find another place. And so that's like the first thing where I had to really get over, was that I had to believe there's something better for me out there, and that I cannot see that or have that unless I let go of what doesn't serve me. And that was one of the biggest lessons I felt once I left, that corporate retail job. It's because we have such an attachment, and because I think we're in that environment where we see people who are really, I don't know if this is the best description, but like how, we see them as stuck in that loop. And then we're in a very fear-based environment where it's like, if I lose this job, I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have this. And, we get sucked into it. And so now we're on that same thought pattern, that same vibration where we're like, if I leave, I'm not going to have something better for me. And so part of that transformation, and especially when you're looking for something from better for yourself and you're in this journey, is they are asking you to trust in them, and that the guidance that you're receiving, the little nudges, like, you have to trust and you have to believe it. even though you don't see the whole picture, but you have to trust that the next step is going to be better for you. And so that was a big part of it, of just trusting. And even though I was so fearful, I just said, okay, I have to leave. Like, the first step is I just have to leave, and then we'll figure out the next step. And so once I just told myself, you have to do it, you just do it, and that's it. And that's when, something else opened up that was much better for me. Um, and it was, funny enough, it was another retail job that opened up for me, but the pay was better. The people who I was with was a lot better. And funny enough, I found out, some of the people I worked there were heavily very spiritual. So even though it was a retail setting still, but the people around me who I would interact with, for 8 hours a day were in that realm of spirituality. So that part of me could start flourishing even more. And then from there, that's when I said, okay, all right, I took the step, I believed in it, and now they showed me this is what you're missing out on because you're in that fear state. And so then after that, I said, okay, there's a time where I felt, I think whatever purpose this space served me, it's over. So now I have to move on. And with that prior experience of leaving my other corporate job and leaving here, that gave me the confidence to say, okay, I'm trusting this inner feeling. So I'm going to go ahead and make the jump again. And so then that's when I ended up working at a family owned holistic health and nutrition store. So I was surrounded a lot of people who were into more of the spirituality, holistic part of things. So I was getting closer and closer to what I was longing for. And then I met my girlfriend who was having her spiritual stuff happening at the same time. And that was right when I finished my Reiki master certification. And so the original intention of us two connecting was, for me to help start training her in Reiki, things like that. But the universe presented us as partners. And so
Yeah.
soon we became partners, which we totally didn't expect because at the time, both
Yeah.
of us were not looking for partners at all.
Right. That's how my
Yeah,
partner and I met as well. And I feel like that's how it happens for a lot of people. It's when you least expect it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Fast forward a bit, and now we're here with my sister in Cambria, where now we're really solely focusing on this aspect of ourselves and building that part of ourselves.
Yeah, that's really cool. I really see a lot of commonalities between, obviously in their own ways, but
Yeah,
I see a lot of similarities here. So, I mean, we were brought into this conversation for a reason. So
yeah.
I see why. But the next ones that I got were the Four of Wands
Hmm.
and then the Father of Pentacles. So this leads me into more about what's next. I mean, you've been going through these, I guess, stages of transformation. I like to see this as kind of like walking through those portals onto that next phase of your life. What's next? What are you seeking to achieve? What is on that path of achieving your soul's purpose, whatever that may be? What's in your future?
So what's next is now is fully, embracing this part of me as, of course, the business and financial side, but also claiming that part of me. So now as people ask me, what do I do? Now it's no more of like, oh, I'm still trying to figure out things like that. It's stating and claiming I'm energy worker, Reiki master, channeler, so that now people know I offer those services. And what's next is now building that service into a business and having that as my way of being a service to people. And then currently, what we're doing here in this space, where I'm at with my sister and my girlfriend, is we're gonna very, very soon we're gonna start opening up like community gatherings.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we're gonna start hosting community gatherings. So it's like a safe space for people who want to share what they have to offer, or just need a space where they want to feel safe talking about these types of things. And we go from topics of energy work, tarot reading, interdimensionals, different dimensions. So nothing's off limits.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, cool. Again, I'm just like, part of me is still like, I can't even believe that we're having this conversation. It's so funny, but I love it. Um, I also got the Daughter of Swords in the reverse, as well as the Judgment. So these ones are really interesting as far as like what's coming through. I feel like a lot of the ones that we've seen have had a lot of like these bright colors in them, and these are the first two that I've kind of seen that are more on just like the black and white side, just
Yeah.
have like a darker side to it. But I kind of see this as being a good place to kind of wrap up our conversation, as far as just like I see this really as like rising above, and kind
Mhm.
of all of the weeds that you've had to go through on your journey, and then kind of being almost like that phoenix rising type of feel. And with this Daughter of Swords, this gives me more of also like sorting through all the noise as well to get to where you're at. And so I guess I would love to hear this kind of in more in the form of like advice for those who may be on that journey of, letting themselves really be free and
Mhm.
open and not hiding anymore, going through all of that noise. What would your best advice be for how to really just shine and let your true self out?
Let's see, advice. I would say what immediately comes to mind is try not to act out of fear. So always go back to reminding yourself what is your intention for doing things, and do they serve your highest good at that present moment. That's one of the things that has always brought me back to, centering myself, and also is realizing that when you're on this journey, there's gonna be a lot of there's gonna be a lot of tough situations, a lot of hard, emotional situations,
Yeah.
and it's okay. Like, that's all part of it. And so I always say, there's a balance of things all the time, just like with your cards, which I is a good representation. Is right. We have the colorful spectrum, and we have this little darker side to it, and we have to understand that that is just life, and that is just the universe. There's always dark and light. And so, and that not everything is going to be a smooth bumpy ride, or smooth ride. There's going to be, bumps in the road, but as long as you're always moving in directions not out of fear, and that you're okay with knowing that there's always going to be people that will view you, as maybe not the best person, or there's something wrong with you or whatever, being okay with that, and understanding that the opinions that people will have of you, and, unfortunately, people that might slip in and out of your life, that has nothing to do with you. It's always a representation of what they need to do on the inside too as well. And so I say
Right.
always just move in the directions that you feel that will serve your highest path, and always try and do it in a state where you're not in fear. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that is for me personally one of the biggest things, because it did take me quite a while to kind of publicize my tarot readings, that I do all of these like, I guess, different things. Like
Yeah.
you don't really hear people doing interviews using tarot cards, but I'm like, why
Yeah.
not? And yeah, like that I feel like is excellent advice and I'm 100% behind that. Is there anything else you would like to share? Any kind of closing words, any thoughts, best ways to reach you, things like that?
Yeah. So if anyone was ever interested in services or just learning more about Reiki or channeling, my Instagram name is Free of My Ego, and you'll see like a drawing of me in like a 5D type of soul portrait spectrum. So that's why you'll know it's me.
Yeah.
um, and as far as like for closing words, I'll say if you feel called to do something, just give it a try, because you never know what purpose it will serve later on your journey. And always think back to how things served you up until now, because a lot of times when we're on this journey, when we look back at things, we understand like, oh, okay, that was the lesson in that. Okay, now I
Yeah.
see how this is connecting. So never discredit any of your experiences, whether they're good or bad, because there's always some type of lesson in there.
Right. And you never know when someone that you just casually see here and there is going to end up
Yeah,
having a conversation
exactly.
with you like a decade later. You just never know.
Yeah, yeah, and that's actually a perfect thing to end on, is just
Yeah.
you never know. You never know. And the best way to go about it is having no expectations.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's just go with it. Let's see what comes of it. And I'm so appreciative that you reached out. Like this was a lot of fun and it was fun just getting to chat with you because we've never really talked more than probably hi.
Yeah, especially.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. If you're interested in any of this, reach out. And yeah, we'll just see where the universe takes us from here.
Well, yeah, thank you
Well,
so much for having me.
of course, absolutely. It was great having you.
All right.
Bye.